The time being 7 o'clock right now, I'd like to welcome everyone to the annual Abington Republican Town Committee Candidates Forum for the upcoming election on April 29th, Saturday, April 29th at Beaverbrook Elementary School. And as in tradition for this Candidates Forum, we start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. So please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I am your moderator for this evening. I am Alex Haggerty, for people who don't know me. I'm very, very excited to host this forum here tonight. Before I begin, I just want to give a huge shout out to Abington Cam for making us sound so good and look so good tonight. So thank you to Abington Cam, thank you. And also I want to give a huge shout out to also our candidates who have stepped up to run for local office either for the first time or running for re-election. Thank you for your service to the town of Abington and the 17,000 people it represents. So thank you so much for stepping up. And also to the Abington voters who are watching at home and to the Abington voters here and supporters of your candidates. So thank you so much. Without further ado, I want to get right into the forum, right? I want to just go over the order of rules for this candidates forum. Each candidate will be given up to a 2-minute opener. Each candidate will be given up to a 2 minutes per question. If you don't do the 2 minutes, that's great too. Bruins are on. Every candidate will be asked the same question. The seating and order of candidates is determined as listed on the town ballot. So first on the ballot here will be to my right, and then so on and so on. The rounds of questions will then rotate after the first question, so the second person on the ballot gets the next question, and so on, right? Questions have been submitted in advance, and the town committee, we also keep a record of questions from the past that could frequently be asked of candidates. There is a timekeeper present, so to make sure you don't go over that 2-minute, don't worry. Thank you, Jeffrey. Don't worry, I'm not a candidate, so you won't be using that from me. The audience, as I said before, may submit questions for candidates to our question screener, Andy Burbine. Personal questions and personal attacks are not allowed. We do keep a tradition here with this candidates forum that it's specifically on policy and governance. I don't think I can say this enough, that how much we live in such a divided society, that we see so many angry things go back and forth, that it's so great that Abington moves forward and works with everybody of all political parties to move the town forward. So that's always great. And finally, each candidate will be given up given up to a 2-minute closer. All right. Now the first people on the hot seat tonight. All right, we've got, I would like to welcome up the school committee candidates, Chris Coyle, Nicole Emery, and Melanie Whitney. Yep. And if you need water, there's water there for you. All righty, let's jump right into this. All right, our first candidate for school committee, Chris Coyle.
Thanks, Alex. First off, I'd just like to start by thanking the Abington Republican Town Committee for hosting tonight's candidate forum. I also want to take the opportunity to thank the community for all the support these last few years, as well as all the continued support in my run for re-election. I'm Chris Coyle, the current chair of the Abington School Committee. I've had the opportunity to get to know many of you over the years as a member of the school committee and as an active volunteer, parent, and resident in our community. A little bit about myself. I've been a resident of Abington since 2006 and grew up in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. My own mother was an elementary school teacher for almost 35 years. I hold a math degree from the University of Rhode Island and have worked in the finance industry at Bank of America for almost 20 years. I met my wife Jane at URI, and she is an oncology nurse. We've been married for almost 18 years, and we have 2 children that currently attend Abington schools in grades 4 and 7. Prior to being elected to school committee, I first became involved as a parent on the PTO board of the old center school. At the early age of 2, my son was diagnosed with autism, and he began at the center school in their program on his 3rd birthday after aging out of early intervention. My wife and I still credit the amazing work done by the educators, paras, and therapists in those early years for helping him grow, learn, and adjust and enjoy school. In addition to volunteering with the schools, I'm an active board member with the Abington Youth Basketball Rec Program and recently joined the Abington Girls Waves Basketball Program. I'm also a coach for girls softball and was a Little League Baseball coach for 7 years. I started and volunteered my time for the Green Wave Sandlot Baseball Program. To do this, I collaborated with the Town Parks and Rec Department in 2021 and wanted to provide kids with a weekly free opportunity to come out and play a fun game of baseball during July and early August. And we are about to head into our 3rd season this summer. When I was sitting up here 6 years ago, I was asked what my top priority to accomplish was if elected. I answered that it was to bring free full-day kindergarten to the town. We were able to accomplish this goal with the support of the residents, combined with the town and school administrators working together. Some additional accomplishments that I've been a part of include the opening of our new pre-K middle high school and being part of successful negotiations for multiple teacher and staff contracts. I have learned a lot about the budget over the years and how to collaborate with our own town finance committee on a number that works for the entire town and our schools. I worked really hard to increase transparency and communication from the district to encourage parent and community involvement. I've always shared school committee meetings, factual updates, and news as it became available via social media. Over the last 6 years, I made a point to post every meeting date and agenda, as well as the YouTube link for that meeting if available. The committee has also worked with the schools to send out emails via their constant contact, providing our meeting information. You want me to stop? I know there is more work to be done. I'll continue to work hard, listen to the needs of our students, staff, and residents, and ask questions. Once again, thank you for having us here tonight, and I look forward to answering some of your questions.
Thank you, Chris.
Sorry.
Next up, School Committee, Nicole Emery. And I think your mic's off.
There we go. Okay. First, I want to also say thank you to the RTC, Abington RTC, for hosting this annual forum. And thank you to all of you who have taken the time to join us this evening. My name is Nicole Emery. I am originally from Rockland, graduated from Rockland High. Sorry if you can't hear me. I went to the University of Connecticut, go Huskies. I have 2 bachelor's degrees from there, one in nursing, one in psychology. I am a registered nurse and have spent most of my career working in inpatient oncology, which included palliative and end-of-life care as well. And more recently, I became working in home health, which has been a great experience for me so far. Manny and I moved to Abington a little over 8 years ago. We immediately fell in love with the schools and community here. We have 4 children. My daughter Adriana is 8 and currently in 2nd grade at Beaverbrook, but will be at Woodsdale in the fall. My son Julian is 6 and in kindergarten at Beaverbrook. My son Frankie is almost 5 and has another year before hopefully starting school here in Abington. And then my youngest daughter is Lucia, who's 20 months old and usually attached to my hip or in a carrier, anywhere that's somewhere within 2 inches of me. So having 4 young kids with many school years ahead, I have a vested interest in preserving and improving the quality of our schools. My son Frankie is autistic. He is nonverbal, and I've learned so much from him over these last few years. As a special needs mom, I have a strong understanding of the importance in supporting and educating each student as an individual, and that is true for all students, whether they are neurotypical or neurodivergent. Fun little fact about us, we're a bilingual home with Manny's primary language being Spanish. I'm a work in progress, but really trying to improve my Spanish skills. You can usually find me at the Beaverbrook School Playground. My kids love farms, Sweater Farm, local parks, sports fields, somewhere in town. I've been attending school committee meetings ever since my oldest started at Beaverbrook. I regularly attend and participate in the PTO, have volunteered at the schools as well as various events in town. I know our school committee works very hard and has accomplished a lot of great things, but I believe they could use some change and more diversified perspective, and I would like to be that new voice. I'm committed to learning where we excel, where we can improve, and where we need to make a change. I'm committed to our kids and ensuring they get the education they need and deserve. My commitment to parents is transparency in both my actions and the actions in the committee, and I will be sure your voices are heard. I'll kind of end it there because I have more, but I'm looking forward to Election Day and hope I get one of your 2 votes.
Thank you, Nicole. Next up, we have School Committee candidate Melanie Whitney.
Thank you, everyone. I echo sentiment. Thank you to the Republican Town Committee. Thank you to Alex for moderating for us today. We're very fortunate as a community to have contested races for volunteer town seats, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to share more about why I feel I'm a great candidate for our school committee. For those who don't know me, my name is Melanie Whitney. My husband and I made a wonderful decision 15 years ago to move into Abington and start our family here. I'm a graduate of Situate Public Schools and received my bachelor's and master's degrees in accounting from Bentley University. Throughout my career as a CPA, I've worked with clients on managing budgets and in many cases made difficult budget cut decisions. I spent several years of my career leading operational HR team through corporate acquisitions, which included layoffs and employment changes. These experiences have helped me harness my curiosity and open-mindedness in problem solving. Asking more questions often leads to a solution where more parties are engaged. I understand the need to balance fiscal responsibility with human needs. Our school committee has multiple stakeholders with differing priorities, and to provide the best environment to our schools, we want our district to feel engaged and heard. I'm confident my professional experience will help our committee approach challenges with a reasonable and flexible approach. On a more personal front, when my husband and I moved to Abington, we knew very few people, and I had very little knowledge of Green Wave Pride. When my first child was 2, I started getting more involved in the schools. I joined the ABC committee in support of a new middle high school and met some incredible residents who spent countless volunteer hours learning about options for a new school. As my children entered schools, I sat on the board of Beaverbrook PTO, was a Girl Scout leader, and I tried my hand at coaching softball. That didn't go great. I spend my days in front of a computer or in meetings, and I can't say that my paid job fulfills my aspirations. Public education is where my passion resides, and I want to use my expertise to give back to the community. I believe public schools are the heart of our community. I'm proud of the school committee and our district. I want to ensure everyone's voice is heard. I want to find those students who don't have a sense of community. I want to see our community coming together for the betterment of all, and I want to see each student with a connection to our town through clubs, sports, drama, music, or classroom experiences. Students' job until age 18 is to learn, and our public schools provide the opportunities for our students to grow. I want to provide a safe and welcoming environment to all students. My promise to you as an elected school committee member is to listen to what the community wants and needs and to do my best to provide transparency in decision-making. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. All right. Chris, you're the first one on the hot seat.
All right, sounds good.
Chris, if at any time you need me to repeat a question, please let me know. If elected to the school committee, what will be your top priorities of focus over your three-year term?
So I think the top priority to start off is going to be the transitioning of a new superintendent. For those of you that don't know, Superintendent Schaefer is retiring at the end of June 2024, at the end of the next school year. Dr. Felicia Michelle, the current assistant superintendent, will be taking over for him. And I believe the transition to her, while she's been here for quite a few years and knows the background, it's still a brand new job. And I think the transition to her is going to be one of the first things that we have to undertake. In addition, I'd like to get the school committee focused back to the core things that drive us, that what our core role is, that drive the education of children, the core roles of the school committee, what it's assigned to do, the budget, set policy, and evaluate the superintendent of schools. We've gotten into a political climate, as you mentioned when we started. I'd like to get the focus back onto those things. So those will be my top priorities heading into the next 3 years if elected.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Nicole, same question to you.
So one of my top priorities is definitely the mental health of our students. I think with the COVID years, we're still seeing the effects of that. Prior to COVID, there was a mental health crisis with our youth, compounded by everything that happened during COVID. I don't think we're anywhere near where we should be with our kids' mental health. I think it's still an ongoing issue, so that will be a priority for me, making sure that we're putting the resources that are needed in the schools and identifying some of the issues that we need to correct. School safety is a big one for me, making sure. I recently met with superintendent and assistant superintendent about our school safety. I know that we're doing everything we can do, but just continuing to revisit that, making sure with each tragedy that we see happen, that it's nothing, maybe something that we can identify early on if there's problems within our town, making sure that we're doing everything that we can to keep our schools safe. Also in Abington, we're seeing an increase in the English language learner program, which is great. We're having, we have an increase in that population, but with that comes a lot more needs, and making sure that we have all the resources to just make sure those kids are getting the education they need, and the kids in the classroom with them are getting the education they need and deserve. So those are probably my top 3.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Melanie, same question to you.
Sure. So I think my two top priorities are community. You will probably hear me say that word a lot. I think we have an excellent community in Abington, and I'd love to draw more parallels between what we have in the schools and our community. I'd like to see a relationship developed, if it's not already there, which I haven't experienced, relationship between people who are retired or seniors who are looking to get involved with some of the students, read to them maybe at the Beaverbrook. I'd like to see employers, both within Abington and outside of Abington, have a relationship. We have a fantastic Credit for Life program at Abington. I was a part of that program at both BC High and Notre Dame when I worked for a bank, and I was coming in teaching some of these students financial literacy, and it was an amazing program, and one of those days where students leave their high school career and say, I remember that day. I want to introduce more of those days to the Abington students. I want to ensure that our sense of community includes everyone. I want to ensure that it's not just a sports kid or a drama kid or a music kid. I want everyone to have a tie. I think to Nicole's point, school safety and mental health is huge. And I think creating that inclusive and community for each student is going to help the mental health of those students and going to help their engagement. The other piece, so community is one of my priorities that I'm very passionate about. The other one is my natural professional tendency on the budget. I'd like to take a close look at our short and long-term budget needs to ensure that as we think about things like a Woodsdale roof, we know, are we going to be changing schools? Are we going to potentially build out at Woodsdale? As we think about our short-term needs, how are we balancing our long-term needs? I think Dr. Michella does a fantastic job, along with Mr. Schaefer, on ensuring that we have a sustainable budget. I think our budget's fairly lean, and I worry in the event there's an economic downturn, what would we cut? Because I don't have an answer to that question. So I just want to ensure our short and long-term budgetary needs are met and what opportunities we have for grant funding. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Melanie. All right, Nicole, this question will start with you. In light of school attacks and shooting tragedies across our nation, parents, caregivers, and students' concerns are on the rise regarding school safety. As a school committee member, what policies and steps will you take with the school department to ensure the well-being, mental health, and safety of Abington students and faculty?
So for physical safety, I'd like to see us tighten up on simple things like doors being propped open, people not, enforcing people not holding doors open for people to walk in, things like that. I also, like many people, would like to see an SRO at each school. I know that that's a budget issue, but that is something I would like to see, or if it wasn't an SRO, something of that capacity where we had somebody in that position that is stationed at each school. I know a lot of other parents want that as well. I think a lot of safety issues go back to mental health issues that can be tied back to things that may have happened in school. So at an earlier age, if we're identifying some of the issues with kids that, if there's bullying issues, anything, or, early identification of problems and helping students that might be struggling, kind of all ties back to safety as well.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Melanie, same question to you.
Nicole did a really good job summarizing things. So I echo her comments. I think as it relates to, there's a lot of budget funding considerations for school safety because improvements to our buildings are not going to be cheap, and having an SRO is not going to be cheap at each building. There are a lot of grants right now out there. I know we've been seeking a $50,000 grant to help with some security cameras so that to the extent we have doors propped open, someone will be alerted. There are programs available as well for us to get police presence, so SROs in our buildings. It's a short-term budgetary consideration, but it's something that I'd like to look into. I'd like to tap into the volunteers within our community. As Nicole mentioned, there's a lot of people who are passionate about this topic, and I'd like to get more ideas from them and have them help us do some research because our administration, we are a small district, our administration doesn't have an exorbitant amount of time to look into every possible option that we have for potential free money. So I'd like to utilize our volunteers. And I think mental health is critical for our students to my point earlier, I think the sense of community helps the mental health piece. I want to look into the Care Solace program that we have rolled out, reflect on that, see if it's working, see what we need changed. I had one more thought, but it just ran out of my mind. I did want to mention two things. One is that I know there was Facebook chatter about people volunteering to stand and be our greeters. That does exist. So both Beaverbrook and Woodsdale, there are signups that you can be a greeter and help with the safety of our students. So if anyone's looking to do that, that's out there. And the second piece is we have a bullying, anonymous tip line, if you will. I actually didn't know that existed until I was preparing for tonight and found it. So I think maybe we need to do a better job at letting people know what resources are out there.
All right.
That's it.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Melanie. Chris, same question
All
for
right,
you.
thanks, Alex. And I guess this is where it's benefits to going first and sometimes benefits to going last, where you get to the, so I mean, yeah, so great points are made by all. What I would want to hit, I guess, for the school safety, so every child should always feel safe when in school or anywhere. Everybody should feel safe when they're in school or anywhere. We do know the world we live in, though. It's not always a safe place out there. One of the things I think we all can continue to do is to look at the best practices in coordination with the Abington Police Department. There are some, because there are budget concerns, as Nicole and Melanie mentioned, there is budget in terms of police officers, things like that. But one of the things that seems to, that's starting to be done is that the SROs are not just assigned to 201 Glennett's Way. There's going to be more effort and more work with them continually going to the elementary schools as well, the 2 SROs that we currently have, so that they're not just seen at the middle high school. They're seen across the district at the different schools and provide that sense of security for the time being. As Melanie mentioned, the grants for improved cameras at the elementary schools is also something that's ongoing. We've had parents at our meetings who helped explain a new Lock Up the Gun program, which is in coordination with the Abington Police Department. They presented their slides on how it works and basically just keeping guns out of the reach of children, to keep it away from them. Other things we've implemented is a Stop the Bleed program with the staff, which is if there's a traumatic event, it helps them, it's helping to teach them what to do to help those in need, those that may be injured. And like everything else, nothing is ever set in stone. I feel this is a special one because things can change on a daily basis. So I think the biggest thing for the safety of everybody is to continue to look at the best practices throughout the district. In terms of the emotional well-being and how that can help lead to unsafe conditions, we've worked with our budget to bring in the adjustment counselors within all the buildings. That's been one of the top priorities the past couple of years, getting the adjustment counselors in there to help speak to the kids that may need just somebody to talk to and help talk them out of what they may be thinking. So it's kind of where I am.
Thank you, Chris.
Yep.
All right, next question, Melanie, we'll start with you. If elected to school committee, how would you balance the need to provide a quality education with the need to respond to the local taxpayer cost?
Okay. Just had to write that down before I forget. Okay, so I think a quality education is a right of our students and our community. I think our schools are at the heart of our community. We want to ensure that those students are getting the best experience they can and the most well-rounded experience. Obviously, adding additional things beyond math, science, history, and English costs money. I'd love to see opportunities for us to bring in some of the trades. I'd love to see, like I was saying before, some events, maybe more after-school clubs, and that is all going to cost money. My solution for that is twofold. One is to figure out what funding is out there already, whether that's grants that are available from the government or whether that's nonprofit funding for different programs. I think a lot of one-off special programs in the arts or in some of the trades, we can find additional funding. Additionally, to the extent I've heard a lot from our community about how we will help. So I'm curious in exploring, I'm going to say pay to play, and that's going to sound wrong, but a pay to play approach for certain clubs. And what I mean by that is we could do a fundraiser for either parents or other community members to raise funds for 20 children to have a coding class after school. It's not to say that the kids that are in that class are going to pay, but it's a special fundraiser that's done just for that event. So I'd like to explore opportunities outside of our town budget and our residents to provide betterment for our students.
All right, thank you, Melanie. Same question to you, Chris.
Thanks, Alex. I think Melanie hit on a key point in talking to, the grants are one of the key things to focus on when it comes to that, because that's something that can help balance, take down the cost that comes to within the townspeople. It's something that we could probably do a better job, honestly, at looking more into as an entire district, looking to see what grants are available out there, working with other groups. I know the Abington Education Foundation does a phenomenal job of looking for grants that are out there. We never know when the budget's going to hit a downturn, right? So it's always something that's top of mind focus. We've been lucky at Abington compared to some other towns that I've heard where we've been able to maintain the education as it's currently structured for our students and not working with the town and what the budget we have to work with. I know that might not always be the case. There is the constant need of what is the most important thing to keep. I was asked that question on somewhere else. What is the most important things you would keep if there was a downturn? And obviously it comes down to the core education subjects that are needed. In addition, I've heard from many parents that at the high school, they'd love to see another language. Currently, we just have Spanish as part of our programming. I've heard many parents mention that they wanted the Portuguese to be part of the budget. Something I'd like to do with the money that we have available, and just try to make that the educational experience for those high schoolers even broader as they go on to their next level, whether it be college, whether it be into the workforce, however it ends up turning out for them.
Okay, so thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Nicole, same to you.
Repeat the question so I can.
Sure, absolutely. If elected to school committee, how would you balance the need to provide a quality education with the need to respond to the local taxpayer cost?
Okay, so like what's already been said, looking at the grants, how we can better spend our money, where we're spending it, and maybe what we need to move around. I would look to maybe have more community involvement in some of the added programs that we could do, maybe even if it's outside of the traditional school hours, depending on what programs we're trying to add. You mentioned the Abington Education Foundation, which is something I'd written down. I know that they, like Chris said, are very good at seeking out grants, money for things that I actually just recently learned about what they do, but they can help find funding for different things and programs that we want to do within the schools, help funding with teachers, fundraising. Sorry. Let's see. Something else I was just going to say. I will end it there because I'm drawing a mind blank, but I feel like it's all been said, but.
All right, thank you, Nicole. Chris, next question to you. You touched upon this a little bit. According to the Abington School Department, 10% of Abington's enrolled students are English language learners, known as ELL. As a school committee member, how would you address the growing English language learners program?
So the addition of English language learners, teachers, has been one of the top budget priorities in the past couple of years because of that influx that has occurred, and it's exponentially increased over the last couple of years. So trying to keep up with the demands that requires has been one of the top priorities as we focus every single year. Those that struggle to learn the same way as everybody else is always a top priority for me, and I think everybody on there, right? There's an added focus with ELL and special ed as well. To me, they can kind of fall in the same bucket in terms of those that need the extra support of our teachers and staff, and our teachers and paras. And I just feel that those groups are going to will be a focus of mine throughout, no matter where we turn in the budget. So those are a top priority to support the English language learners and really any groups of students that need the additional support to help learn at the same rate that a typical neurotypical child or any kind of typical child that has English as a primary language would also learn at.
Thank you, Chris. Nicole, same question to you.
So looking at the numbers and how they impact class sizes and learning, do we have enough of the additional supports? Making sure that we have up-to-date translator services, the programs that we're using. I actually have attended some of the LPAC meetings to kind of connect with parents. So that's the English Learner Parent Advisory Council. Just to connect with some families through that, see what do they think, what do they need, what are their wants and wishes within the schools. I know that a lot of people want to see more bilingual services within administration, so somebody in the office, not just, one or two float around translators. I also think that classrooms that tend to have more of a dense EL population, so if there's like five, I know in my son's class, there's like 5 kids that are all English learners. I think that can be really tough, and making sure that we have the proper resources for those kids, or, if it's just one float para that comes in, I think it's really hard, because what I've seen from volunteering in the class is it's then kind of left on some of the other kids that are surrounding them to be kids that have a better understanding of English, to be translating for them. So looking at those types of things, make sure that we're utilizing all the up-to-date programs. I think that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Nicole. Same question to you, Melanie.
So I echo, Nicole, you touched upon quite a few things that I was thinking of, using the LPAC and the feedback that we get from those family members. I think will be very helpful in understanding where our gaps may be and where we are succeeding. I think from a teacher perspective, if there is an interest from teachers to get additional certifications or additional training through CPE, I think that would be very helpful. Nicole brought up students translating for one another. My daughter was in the 4th grade last year, and she had a classroom. There was only one teacher who had the certification to teach students that were first year in the country, because I think beyond the 10% of our students being English language learners, we also have about 2.5% of those who are first year in the country. So those students likely have very little English, and they may not have any English at home. So I think engaging with those students and their families is a challenge and something that we need to rise to the occasion. My daughter was originally concerned about the translating. This poor student who doesn't have English as their home language is spending their time also translating for someone else. But she learned, as a student who is not an English language learner or someone who's neurotypical, she learned so much from those students. And I think we have a huge benefit in our schools because we have a more diverse population, and it's getting increasingly more diverse. So I'd like to look into teacher certifications and what we can do as a district to help support teachers. And then the other piece is translation services. Nicole brought up, on the administration end, ensuring that we are able to talk to the parents. I think a communication tool could be something that we could explore. There's apps out there where all communication goes through a tool, so we're not using something like Google Translate to translate something. I know for PTO, we really struggle. I do Sign Up Geniuses, and I put it in Google Translate and then put it in the Sign Up Genius. I have no idea if what I'm saying is appropriate because I do not speak Portuguese. So I have a couple people who know Portuguese, so I float it by them when they're available, but more opportunities for us.
Thank you, Melanie. Next question, we'll start with you, Nicole. Do you think schools are becoming more focused on social issues than student achievement and education?
I don't think in Abington that we've become more focused on social issues than education. I guess I'd have to know exactly what social issues we're talking about, but I do think that there's a concern that there's less focus on our core subjects and what kids should be going to school to learn, and that we've kind of strayed away from just teaching, what we would traditionally have taught back when I was in school. Where we go, you learn your math, science, history, whatever. I think times have also changed, so that's why we've seen some of the changes. But I think in general, there is a national trend that, depending on where you live, there's kind of been a stray from what I'd like to say is traditional education. Have I seen it with my own kids and here? My kids are so young, not really, not yet, but I know that, and I hope that that's not something that becomes a big problem here. I think that there's probably, if it came down to that, there'd probably have to be policies put in place. But, I mean, it's kind of broad, but I guess I'd have to know exactly what we're talking about.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Same question to you, Melanie.
I think that's fair, Nicole. It's a broad question. I'm not sure where everyone was going with it. I think I asked the question of our superintendent, what is the role of the school? Because as I think about community, I think about, oh, how wonderful would it be for our graduates to be able to enter the real world, knowing real world things like how to do your laundry and how to have a budget and financial literacy and all of that. But is that the role? And I was struggling myself with that question of what is the role of our schools? And his response was, our role is to teach students what they need to learn. And that's beyond English and math. As I reflect back on my education, I remember doing English and math, but we also talked about ourselves. We did the pictures of who I am and who I grew up with. And, we did a lot. We did planting and things like that. So I think it's evolving because I think needs are evolving. We have students who come from a lot of different households and who rely on our public schools to provide mental health services and physical health services. And I think we have a more diverse student base than we did when I was in school. To be quite frank, when I was in school, you had the English language learners were in their own class and there was no interaction. The children who learned differently were in a different class and there was no interaction, and education has changed. So I think we need to adapt to those changes, and I think we're going for the better. So that's where I think we stand and where we're going.
All right, thank you, Melanie. Chris, same to you.
Alex, can you please repeat?
Sure, absolutely. Do you think schools are becoming more focused on social issues than student achievement and education?
So I don't think that schools are becoming more focused on social issues than student achievement, but I do believe that social issues are becoming something that is an awareness to them as it is throughout the world. I think that social emotional learning is something that's now needed in our schools. The adjustment counselors that I hit on before is something that's needed for the emotional well-being of many of these kids after the post-pandemic, even before, even non-pandemic related though, it is still something that's out there. So I believe that has to become part of what these children are taught to help them understand help them succeed in the real world. Diversity, inclusion, equity. It's inclusive. Being an inclusive environment is something we need to teach. It's something that everybody should be. You should be inclusive of everybody that's around you. Equality, treating everybody equal, is something that should be taught in our schools. And I don't believe it's becoming more than the educational standards, but I believe it's becoming part of the educational standards that our children need to know, and that the schools are teaching them how to do their best when they get out of our schools, preparing them for their future.
All right, thank you, Chris.
Yep.
All right, Melanie, last question to you. We'll start with you. Let's see. What challenges do you believe the school committee and school department will be facing over the next 3 years, and how would you, as a school committee member, address them?
So I think our challenge is budget's always going to be an issue, especially as we look to a potential economic downturn. That is always going to be a consideration, as well as our aging schools on the elementary side. We are growing as a town, and the number of students that we have are growing. Right now, we have a bubble of students in Beaverbrook and Woodsdale that are going to be coming up through the ranks. If we see the same level of students who are attending Abington High School and not going to another district or a private school, we are going to have more students in that building than I would think that we can house. I know every year the school committee does an analysis of enrollment and where students are going to sit. I don't know how far out that is looking. And I'd be very interested to understand if we're going to be in a position where Golanowitz is only housing 6 through 12. Do we think we're going to need space at the Folio? Do we think we're going to need to make improvements or build a whole new school on an elementary level? I think that is something that's going to be a significant challenge, both from a budgetary and from a timing perspective. And the other piece is staffing. I think to continue to attract and retain our top teachers may get increasingly more difficult as you see fewer people going into the profession. There are certain areas within the high school where it is harder to find a teacher who specializes in, for instance, computer science. If you are interested in computer science, you could probably make a lot more in the private industry. It's hard to find someone who really wants to be a teacher. Those are the folks who are super passionate. Same thing with the languages. It may be more difficult to find those teachers. I think we need to do a careful job projecting what our teachers are going to look like at each level, both each grade and at the English, science, math. To
to ensure that we don't have a year where, we have a significant staffing shortage. So, two challenges.
Chris, same question to you.
Thank you, Alex. And I think, honestly, I think Melanie hit on two of the bigger ones we're going to have. The budget is always going to be a challenge. We're not always going to be in a great budget cycle. I do fear that at some point that is going to turn on us, and how we go about handling it is going to be one of our biggest challenges. The other one is the number of the population bulge that we're seeing at the younger grades. It's affecting the spacing within the schools, how many classrooms we physically have in buildings. The sizes of students that are populating those classrooms will become larger and larger. And at those levels, at those younger levels, is where you really need to focus on the class sizes. It's impossible. It's nearly impossible for a second grade teacher to run a classroom with 28 children in there. So that's something we want to not have and avoid it at all costs. And in the end, with that bulging population, I think the discussion will have to be made: is it best suited to try to look to improve the current schools we have, or does this discussion have to turn at some point to building a new elementary school? And does the structure change? Melanie hit on the 6 through 12. The 6 through 8 at the middle school is something that, if we ever did have something change, like that would be a change I would like to see happen. We can't do it right now with what we have in there, but I believe that the school structure and the bulging population, along with the district, how are we going to manage the money, and then how are we going to manage the amount of students that we have coming? Because it's great. Abington is keeping so many more students here, especially at the high school level. They're not going to the Catholic schools like they were before. And at the same time, we're bringing so many more people moving into the town with new housing, that it's great that we have this many more students that want to learn and live here, but we need to be able to educate them the best way possible. So,
Thank you, Chris. Nicole, same question to you.
So I'm also going to say the classroom sizes, the cohorts are getting bigger. Like both Chris and Melanie said, at the lower levels, there's that bubble. When I had spoke to Peter recently, he was saying that it's not the biggest bubble they've seen go through, but it is a challenge. By the time it's specifically the second grade gets to Woodsdale, I am a little concerned. I think it'll be a challenge housing them all and doing that without having to lose certain things. For example, they had to remove the art room, so now art's on a cart. Things like that, I think, is going to be a challenge. I hate to see certain programs like that lose their classroom, even though it's still on a cart. I think I hate to see that, because I still think the arts are really important, and some kids will thrive on that. Not every kid is a sport kid. And like we talked about earlier, I also think that while it's not a bad thing, but the increase in the English language learner program, as we see that get bigger, that with that comes a bigger need for more resources, which will require more of the budget, more teachers. I know that they do a survey to see how many predicting how many kids they'll expect to be coming into the district, and Peter was saying that it's getting tougher to rely on that survey because not everyone lives the way that they used to live. They would say if you had a 2-bedroom home, they would expect that there would be, let's say 3 kids entering the school system, and now it's not like that because people like me shove 4 kids in a 2-bedroom home. And then, you have the people that have a 5-bedroom home with just 1 kid. So I think those will be some of the bigger challenges. I think that's it.
Thank you, Nicole. All right, now we begin with closing statements. We'll start with you, Melanie.
Okay.
And work our way this way.
So thank you all for taking your time to come here tonight to learn about our candidates for the upcoming election. I'm excited for the future of Abington. I'm proud of the progress our schools have made over the last decade. I'm grateful for the current and prior school committee members whose dedication has improved many aspects of our schools. Your voice matters, and I hope you take the opportunity to vote on the 29th at Beaverbrook. I would be honored to have one of your 2 votes for the school committee. If elected, what you see here today is what you can expect from me. I'm passionate, curious, open to new ideas, and interested in developing a stronger community for all. As a homeowner and taxpayer, I will commit to be fiscally responsible and explore alternative funding options. As a mother, I will commit to advocating for each student of the Abington Public Schools. Each student deserves to walk away from their public school career with positive experiences and lifelong relationships. And as an elected official, I will commit to asking questions and listening to our community's feedback. If you have additional questions for me, I'd love to hear from you. Chat with me after this concludes, email me, go on my Facebook page. I'd love to hear from you. The more I hear from you, the better service to our communities and students if elected to school committee. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Melanie. Closing statement from you, Nicole Emery.
So again, thank you for having me here tonight and allowing me to give some insight about myself. I'm sure many school committee members before started out just like me, a dedicated and committed parent wanting to be more involved in making sure our kids receive the education they need and deserve. I'm committed to making hard and important decisions that might mean big changes for our schools. Having 4 young kids, like I mentioned, I have a vested interest in a long way to go with the Abington Public Schools. I do believe our current school committee has a lot of really great members who work really hard, but I do think that it could use a little bit of change in thoughts and opinion. I would like to see our committee have a more diverse perspective that can truly represent all students in our district. I know we have and will continue to see some potentially big changes in public education, and I'm willing to question changes that might not just feel right. I think it's incredibly important that we provide transparency and protect parental involvement in education, and I'm committed to making sure all parents and students feel welcome and heard. I'm ready to make the commitment this town needs for our kids and hope to earn your vote, one of your 2 votes for school committee on the 29th.
All right, thank you, Nicole. And Chris Coyle.
Thanks, Alex. Thank you to everyone for providing Melanie, Nicole, and I the time and opportunity to answer your questions tonight. It's no secret anyone in the past 3 years have brought about unprecedented challenges for everyone, not just schools. The most important work the committee and administration has had to do, and it's not even close to being done yet, is to help bring our children back from the educational and emotional toll that the COVID pandemic has had on them and their families. In addition, I've taken great pride in being able to work alongside fellow and past committee members with the utmost professionalism and respect. This past year as the committee chair, we've had many meetings and agenda items that were unlike any we've had previously. I have strived to maintain balance and order in these discussions with no political agenda. I've always been willing to listen to the residents of Abington with an open mind. If re-elected, this is something that I will continue to do. I fully understand that a difference of opinions is healthy and okay, especially on an elected board. I want the public schools to remain a great and safe place to learn and grow for all children. I also know that school safety is a priority for students and families. I can ensure the committee will continue to look at best practices, building structures and layouts, and work with the Abington Police Department to come up with the best plans. I'd like the chance to close this out by just saying that I would really like to get the school committee focused back to the core things that drive education for our children. Over the last few years, things have obviously strayed from that, which I understand. I would like to try and get out of the national political climate as much as possible. I'm not a politician, no offense to anybody in this room, and I don't want to be one. I'm just a parent that is involved, like all 3 of us up here tonight. I want to continue the work that is being done by the current committee and prior committees. The most important thank you tonight to my wife and children for the love and support they provided me on this ride the last 6 years. My own children and all the children of Abington remain the reason why I'm continuing to run for re-election. Please feel free to reach out with any questions or concerns, and I look forward to seeing you on Election Day and humbly ask for your vote on April 29th.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Melanie. Awesome, excellent discussions. We do have a little bit of a surprise here. An Abington resident is going to do a writing campaign, reached out to the committee here to provide a statement. Mr. Dion? You're welcome.
Good evening. My name is Tom Dion, and I have to say that this is a little bit of deja vu for those that don't know that this Republican Town Forum has been in existence at least since 1980 when I first ran for office, and it's nice to know that this sort of an institution has continued throughout the years. My name is Tom Dion, and I'm a candidate, write-in candidate for the Abington Water Commission. And I just want to tell you quickly about the Abington-Rockland Joint Waterworks. It's governed by 6 elected water commissioners, 3 from Rockland and 3 from Abington. In the upcoming Saturday, April 29th town election, Abington will have 2 open water commissioner seats, a one-year seat to fill an unexpired term, and a full three-year seat. Since no registered voter filed nomination papers for this position with the town clerk, these seats can be filled with a write-in vote. I am a write-in candidate for the open one-year seat. I feel that having an unbalanced water board does not constitute good governance. This will happen for a period as long as one in the three-year term go unfilled. Rockland will have 3 members, while Abington will only have 1 member to vote on matters of importance that may affect Abington. I feel my candidacy, I've got proven experience and commitment to serve the community at a high level as your water commissioner, given the over 20 years service to the town as a former Abington selectman, school committee member, assessor, and finance committee member. As a retiree with over 30 years experience in the corporation in a senior level positions, working with RS Means, I believe my knowledge and business acumen make me well suited to address any challenges the Abington Rockland Joint Waterworks may face in the future. I think there are some issues that are of concern to all of us. One, I think maybe the most immediate that is being addressed is with pollutants that get in the water, specifically PFAS, which are considered forever sort of chemicals that get into the water system. And I'll just stop there and see if there's any questions, and then I'll continue to finish up.
Because you are a write-in candidate, and I know my dad knows all about that being a write-in candidate, what is your address for people to write you in if they would like to?
Okay, so, in fact, it's sort of, what's the word? Promoted marketing, but the reason I just want to put that up there, and I'm sure Abington Cam would, but as a write-in candidate, unlike all the other candidates here, their name will be on the ballot. Mine won't. As you do your due diligence and you go to vote, all you're going to need to do is just blacken in the circle next to the name. In my case, you're going to have to put in my full name as is in the registered voter list, and it's Thomas J. Dion III. I didn't give myself that, so don't hold me accountable. But I think even if it's reasonable, then it will be counted. The other thing is, when you take a look at the sample ballot, the last column has water commissioner. The first one is the one-year unexpired term, which I'm seeking, and the second one is a 3-year term for water commissioner. I would like to say that, it wasn't my intent, it wasn't on my radar screen to run for water commissioner, but when I did see that there were 2 open seats, and I am concerned, as I said, with governance where it's unbalanced. I don't think it's in the best interest of Abington to have 3 members from Rockland voting on important matters and only 1 until these 2 open seats get filled. The other thing I just would like to say is I think water service is like electricity. I think people look at it as a ubiquitous service, which I mean is when you come in your house and you turn on your electricity, you don't really care, or you're not concerned where it comes from. You're not concerned how it gets into your house. You just want to know when you turn on the electricity, it's there. The same with water, in my opinion. When you come in and you turn on your faucet, you expect that water to be clean, you expect the clarity to be there, and you expect it to be of sufficient pressure. You're not concerned with where the source is. You're not typically concerned with how it's cleaned, and you're not concerned with how the conditions of the pipe it gets there. You're looking for clean water with clarity and that has sufficient pressure. That's why I feel I'm a good candidate to basically assure residents that that will be my concern. Right now, some of the hot topics on the water board, as I said, are these PFAS, and I think we've just approved a $26 million bond to take care of one of our sources, which is over the level of PFAS, or those forever chemicals. The other thing that's a big concern is sources of new water for the community. I know some residents, particularly in Abington, have an issue with the clarity of the water, or basically, I think they call it turbulent water, where other materials get in it and it makes it cloudy or whatever. So I'm asking you for your one write-in vote for the one-year seat, and I would appreciate the opportunity to serve the community.
All right, thank you, Tom.
Okay?
All right. Let's see. Up next on The Price is Right, we have our planning board candidates. I would like to welcome up here planning board candidates Bruce Hughes and Michelle Kearney. And Bruce, you'll be right here, Michelle in the middle. All right. All set? All right, I'll start with opening statements. Planning board candidate, Bruce Hughes.
Hi, everyone. Thanks to the Republican Town Committee for having us here tonight. My name is Bruce Hughes. I'm Chair of the Planning Board. I'm running for re-election. I'm a lifelong resident of Abington, graduate of Abington Public Schools. I worked my way through Massasoit and UMass Boston and Bridgewater State, where I got a master's in public administration. I have 36 years professional experience as a planner. When I was in college at UMass Boston, I did an internship at Old Colony Planning Council, where I went on to work for 31 years as an economic development community planner. I have experience in transportation, economic development, land use, and water quality planning. After I retired from OCPC, I went to work for Montechusett Regional Planning Commission, and I worked there as a principal planner for about a year or so before I finally retired. I'm not retired yet. I still do weekend security. That's okay. And I've been on the planning board for 25 years. So what I offer the community is experience as a planner. I'm still taking courses. Some of the things I'm involved in, one of the things I'm involved in is the Citizens Planner Training Collaborative, which offers courses to members of planning boards and ZBAs and whatnot. And I've been on that committee for probably 20 years. We just had a big conference out in Worcester where I moderated a session. And I believe in continuing education, no matter how much experience and work I've done in planning over the years, you can still learn new things. And that's why I'm a strong advocate of CTPC. I hate to talk in acronyms, Citizens Planner Training Collaborative. Like I say, I've lived in this town. I've seen this town change and grow over the years. Where Bay State Ice Cream now is, of course, Bay State Estates. So many things. Where Velplex was is housing. Where I went to North School is, okay, I'll close, but thank you. But thank you so much for the opportunity to be here tonight.
All right, thank you, Bruce. Next up, planning board candidate, Michelle Kearney.
Hi, I wanted to start by saying thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Michelle Kearney. I'm 33 years old, a lifelong resident of Abington. Excuse me. I graduated from Abington High in 2008, and then I attended Quincy College before transferring to Suffolk University. I majored in their respective undergraduate legal programs, always graduating with honors. I've since worked as a paralegal, which has taught me to always be thorough, adaptable, make well thought out, well informed, deliberate decisions, get creative, and I think that I have some very transferable skills, and it would be a great asset to the board. And if elected, I look forward to working with the other board members to help improve Abington for the residents. And I would bring in new ideas, a fresh perspective, and again, plan for the future and make well thought out, informed decisions.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you, Michelle. All right, Bruce, you're in the hot seat. First question to you. If elected to the planning board, what will your priorities be? What will your top priorities of focus? Oh my gosh, I can't read today. What will be your top priorities of focus over your planning board term?
Well, we have a number of issues facing the planning board right now. The redevelopment of Union Point. Abington has 75 acres at Union Point, and there's a couple of build-out scenarios for that. One would include being largely commercial, and the other would be largely residential. So that's an issue of interest to the planning board. The other one is the continuing master plan. Master plans are the main job of the planning board is to write and implement the master plan. And the last update was in 2019, done by our former town planner, Dan Crane, who I would love to see a town planner, by the way. So we have that. And of course, we have the MBTA housing. We have to have about 1,000 units in Abington, and they have to be within about half a mile of the commuter rail station. Lexington was in the Boston Globe recently as being proactive on this. I think Abington has been proactive in that we've zoned that area transit-oriented development, which allows for cluster development in that area. Cluster development is a planning term for houses that are built close together. South Weymouth Naval Air Station, that's something called Form A development, which is another term for cluster development. So I think those are real issues that we're facing on the planning board, and I'd like to continue to serve on the planning board to address them.
All right, thank you, Bruce. Michelle, same question to you.
Could you repeat it? I'm sorry.
Sure. If elected to the planning board, what will be your top priorities of focus over your planning board term? I got it out then.
I know that there are a lot of things going on within the town, such as Union Point and the MBTA 3A, but generally speaking, I would like to see the overall language of our bylaws improved. If we could work towards clarifying and making the language more precise, eliminating the ambiguities, I think that could resolve a lot of our issues within the town anyways. For example, you don't want two people to come before the planning board presenting nearly identical applications and the bylaws to be interpreted one way for person A but a different way for person B. So I would like to work towards cleaning up some of the language. Another priority of mine would be to develop a written set of rules and regulations or policies and procedures for the board to follow. I know it's an authority given to communities across the state, through the state, and it's granted to the planning board through the town charter. So I think that if there were some clearer guidelines, that could help improve the board's enforcement authority, which would be very beneficial. And I know a lot of other towns conduct routine site visits, and I think that that would also be another great power for the board to have. So generally speaking, I would like to work towards improving the language and developing a set of written rules and regulations for the board.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Okay, the next question goes to you. There continues to be a need for affordable and senior housing in Abington. What should Abington do to address housing needs, and how would you address housing as a planning board member?
This is the dreaded question. I dread this question. It's so hard to answer because there's no straightforward, simple solution. But luckily, senior housing and affordable housing, they're not mutually exclusive. So we could simultaneously achieve multiple goals. In this, it gives us a great opportunity. And for example, the North and Center schools, we could use those locations. It would have minimal impact on the existing residents of the town because the land is already developed, so there would be minimal environmental impact. No trees would have to be cut down or anything. There would still some obstacles that would need to be overcome, but I think if we really take the time and, work, I believe Habitat for Humanity, we have a growing senior population in the town. We want to encourage them to stay within Abington, but they need somewhere to live. And we could achieve multiple goals at the same time with as minimal impact as possible.
All right, thank you, Michelle. Same question to you, Bruce.
Well, I'm on the Community Preservation Act Committee, and one of the things that CPA does is housing. And of course, a couple of the buildings that are being looked at are the North and Center schools. Now, these aren't very large buildings. They were built by the Public Works Administration in the Great Depression era. But those conceivably could be areas for housing. I'd like to see if we still have land available near the existing senior housing in Abington, to see if that could be expanded on, the one on Glenowitz Way, the one off of Bedford Street, to see if possibly more housing could be built there. And Abington isn't at the 10% cap on the community housing, affordable housing. So there's still room for affordable housing development in the town. Of course, the biggest elephant in the room, as I've mentioned before, is South Weymouth Naval Air Station. And I see that as a possible site for an awful lot of housing units. Right now, there's 75 school children at the existing development, so of course there'd be school children. But I see that as a site for housing. And again, with the form-based development, it could be a reason, an area to have quite extensive housing to meet the needs of seniors and young families coming into town.
All right. Thank you, Bruce. All right, next question first to you. What changes would you like to make to the zoning bylaws?
Well, at the last town meeting, we had a lot of cleanup bylaws in place as far as like earth removal and stuff like that. Bylaws are a continuous process. Since my time on the board, they've been rewritten numerous times over the years. And things change, bylaws change, the need for bylaws change and stuff like that. I can't give you anything specific. I wish I could, but I can tell you that there is a need to constantly update them and as the needs arise. And we have a terrific assistant town planner in Liz Shea in Abington. And I want to, give a shout out. If we can't have a town planner, I'm glad that we have Liz. But Liz is very professionally skilled. And of course, I think I have a little bit of professional knowledge. So I think that working with Liz and the fellow members of the planning board, we can address the need for changes in the bylaws.
All right, thank you, Bruce. Michelle, same question to you.
Like I previously mentioned, rather than focus on any one specific change, I think if we clean up the language, that will go a long way. It'll make it more clear, concise. They should speak for themselves, basically. Leave little room for disputes or whatnot, eliminate the ambiguities. So I think rather than focus on something specific, we should just clean up the language and generally just make them more understandable to the layperson, I guess.
All right, thank you, Michelle. Okay, next question is, what are your thoughts on the master developer new plans for development on the Abington piece of the airbase? This question goes to you, Michelle.
Me? Union Point. So I've had a chance to look at the most recent plan submitted, and I know that this presents a potentially very profitable opportunity for the town. It gives us a chance to, again, simultaneously achieve multiple goals and economic growth. There are some hurdles that will need to be overcome, mainly the impact on town resources, access, fire, water, police, sewerage. But, if elected, I really look forward to working with the future town planner, the master developer, Brookfield, and the other board members. And I think that this presents a great opportunity for the town.
Thank you, Michelle. Same question to you, Bruce.
The most recent master plan basically has a couple of scenarios, particularly for Abington. One would be a large residential development, and the other one would be a large commercial development. The large commercial development would result in about $4.2 million in annual revenues to the town. The large residential element would result in over $5 million in development revenue for the town. I was involved with the with Union Point committees from the get-go, and when I retired from Old Colony Planning Council, I got off a couple of the committees. But there's just a tremendous amount of opportunity for the town. Again, it's not free. There will be school children. There will be impacts on infrastructure, even though largely the infrastructure will be going through Weymouth as far as the water and sewer and things like that goes. But, as someone who's had an interest in the redevelopment of that place for many, many years, I think that this most recent reuse plan provides a great opportunity for the town to get some revenue out of it and to have, again, as I mentioned before, have a place for people to live.
All right, thank you, Bruce. Next question, we'll start with you. If elected to the planning board, how should Abington go about to address the new draft state requirement for housing near the MBTA station?
Okay, I love this. I love talking about this subject because, I mean, it's really a sexy planning issue. But of course, as you might know, Abington needs to build about, or not build, this is the thing that you have to point out. There's no requirement to build it, but it's required to zone for the housing. And it has to be within a half a mile of a transit, transit commuter rail station. Note is a planning term. So Abington has been proactive in this, and they've rezoned that area transit-oriented development, which allows for a large cluster development in that area. I think that the thoughts of the planning board are that perhaps 600 of these units could be built on the land at the South Weymouth Naval Air Station, for example, which is near a commuter rail station too, so that fits in with the goal of the state objective. A lot of people want to live in Abington, and whether or not we can afford to continue to build large single-family houses on large lot development is a question that could be asked. But as a planner, I really like the idea of the cluster development, the form-based development, the multiple unit housing, which is what the state is requiring. And I think it's a tremendous opportunity for Abington to address housing needs.
All right, thank you, Bruce. Michelle, same question to you.
I too enjoy this topic. But, so these are requirements set forth by the state, and I'm familiar with the draft guidelines that were presented last year. They came out with the final guidelines this past August, but they were later revised in October. I've had a chance to review those, and it's my understanding that it requires MBTA communities, which in Abington, we have the commuter rail, to build so many units, multifamily housing units within the immediate radius of the commuter rail stop, basically. The interesting part is, though, if that land is undevelopable or unbuildable for one reason or another, then the town should be able to designate other areas within its limits to satisfy this requirement. And since a good portion of the land in the immediate vicinity should be undevelopable, we can look towards other areas. And since Abington already, we have apartments, condos, and townhomes, which qualify as multifamily housing units. And if those are to be built today, if they were allowed as of right, then that will work towards satisfying the overall requirement. So if we can work with our state representatives and other legislators, and if we can satisfy this requirement without increasing the amount of housing, then that will really give the town an opportunity to, again, simultaneously achieve multiple goals and focus elsewhere and focus on other goals as laid out in the master plan.
All right, thank you, Michelle. Final question, we'll start with you, Michelle. Is preservation of open space an important issue for you as a member of the planning board? How would you work to preserve and expand open space in Abington?
Preserve and expand. It is important. I would work towards preserving the current open space now by looking towards the town centers, revitalizing those, redevelop properties or blighted properties that are already available. Rather than cut down trees, let's preserve them. Let's use what's already available. I think that's a huge thing. If we can revitalize, redevelop, use what's there, yeah. I lost my train of thought, but it'll be really beneficial down the line, because everything we do today is going to affect the town for the years to come. So I think really just focus on achieving the goals set forth in the master plan, which my biggest one is to revitalize the town centers, redevelop, revitalize, use what's available before we go interrupting that open space or the vegetation.
Thank you, Michelle. Bruce, same question to you.
One of the goals of the master plan is the redevelopment or revitalization of both North Abington and Abington centers. I echo what Michelle says, that perhaps we should be looking at the existing areas that have been developed as far as redeveloping, add housing. Also, I'd like to also use CPA money to acquire more conservation land, Community Preservation Act money to acquire more conservation land. You can do four things with CPA money, and one of them is acquiring conservation land. People have a right to build as long as they meet the zoning requirements and they present reasonable plans to the planning board. And there is a need for development. But, again, I went to North School. I remember what the old North Abington Center, I'm not that old, I remember all the stores that used to be up there, but still. I remember North Abington Center, I remember Abington Center being developed, and they've sort of gone away. So I'd like to see them, I'd like to meet the goals of the master plan, to have them developed. And like I say, I'd like to use CPA money to purchase conservation land and open space land, so to preserve that.
All right, thank you, Bruce. I did fib, but we do have time to fit in one more question.
Oh,
Bruce, we'll start with you. There, in recent years, there's been thoughts of creating additional marijuana overlay districts. What are your thoughts of the current locations of the marijuana district now, and should we expand?
I think that the ones that we have now are pretty sufficient. We have, at least one open now, and a couple that are going to in the pipeline. Actually, I have an idea for the marijuana overlay district and zoning on Route 18, for example. I'd like to see the continued use of the marijuana overlay district, but I'd also like to see, and right now that's zoned marijuana overlay district, and it's also zoned industrial commercial. I'd like to see the zoning on that, I'd like to have another overlay district to incorporate zoning similar to what Weymouth has, north of the town line, where you have a lot of residential areas and stuff like that. I think that could be incorporated into the existing marijuana zoning districts. I think it could also include the opportunity to have more housing and more commercial development in the town. The marijuana stores are an important source of revenue to the town. But I think what we have works right now, and I think we should leave it at that.
All right, thank you, Bruce. Same question to you, Michelle.
Can you repeat it, please?
Sure. So in recent years, and this continued talk, the town of Abington, we're considering considering creating an additional marijuana overlay district. We currently have one off of Route 18 right now. What is your stance on the current location of the marijuana overlay district, and should we expand?
I'm familiar with the location of the current overlay district, and I think that before we consider expanding, we should really look more into the area that's already covered in the overlay district. It covers an area between Route 18 and Route 58, and there's a lot of already cleared land that's basically just sitting there. So rather than add housing or add anything else and have a bigger impact on the town resources, let's focus on keeping them centralized in that area. And it would be a great source of revenue for the town. I mean, Wayne's Sleep Shop, where that was, that pot shop, that's coming up great. It looks beautiful. And again, they revitalized what was there, redeveloped it. It looks amazing. And again, simultaneously achieve multiple goals. Utilize what's there, utilize what's available, preserve the vegetation and whatnot. So I don't think we really need to consider, we shouldn't be focusing on opening a new or creating a new overlay district. We just really need to use the one that's there and exhaust all those resources before we create a new one.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. And we will now begin with closing remarks. Michelle Kearney.
Okay. Again, I'm Michelle Kearney. I hope to earn your vote in the upcoming election on the 29th. I believe I have many transferable skills, and again, I would bring new ideas, a fresh perspective, get creative with the solutions, use what's there, use what's available, exhaust all the resources we have available. And again, everything we do today is going to have such an impact in the future, and we really need to really consider the long-term effects of everything. And we want to make Abington more than just a drive-through town. I mean, people usually just pass through it to get from point A to point B. We want to attract families, individuals, make it more palatable for businesses, mom and pop shops and whatnot, and again, simultaneously achieve multiple goals. So I hope to earn your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Closing remarks, Bruce Hughes.
Again, I'd like to thank the Republican Town Committee for having us here tonight. I think this has been a great discussion, and I think that Michelle and I have, given you guys a lot of what our thoughts are on the focus of the town. With me, it comes back down to experience. I've been on the planning board for 25 years. I've been a professional planner for many years. I still have an enthusiasm for planning. Ask my wife, she'll tell you I drive her crazy and stuff sometimes. But, what I offer the town is my continuing education. I'm still taking courses. I'm still trying to stay current as the planning issues go. As the chair of the planning board, I try to be inclusive in the meeting and have people have an opportunity to be heard. And, if I'm reelected, if the town decides to reelect me, I look forward to continuing in that role and to, giving people opportunity to be heard at planning board meetings. Please come to them. Again, it's not the most exciting thing in the world sometimes, but it's very necessary, for the direction of the town. And again, thanks so much for having me tonight. I really appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Bruce. Great discussions indeed, thank you. All right. And last but certainly not least, I would like to call up, we have our Board of Selectmen candidates. You will be seated on how you appear on the ballot. Board of Selectmen candidates Alex Bezanson, Suzanne DeJustburg, and Kevin Donovan.
I'm in the middle.
Water. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, and as I said before, we will begin with opening statements. We will go left to right, starting with Selectman candidate Alex Bezanson.
Thank you, Mr. Haggerty. See, you had nothing to be nervous about. Great. Hello. First of all, thank you to the Republican Town Committee, Abington Can, and my fellow candidates. I'm Alex Bezanson. I'm running for re-election because I have a track record of getting things accomplished. I'm currently the chairman of the Board of Selectmen. I'm the former vice chairman of Plymouth County Advisory Board. I have been an Abington Water Commissioner, and I served on the Abington Conservation Commission and also the Open Space Committee. My wife and I founded the nonprofit Hug Foundation, Help People in Need. We also founded the Abington Substance Awareness Coalition, which is now COPES, Abington COPES, to help people affected by addiction. I'm also currently the chairman of the Opioid Fund Settlement Committee for the town, and our charge is to distribute the money from the many opioid lawsuits. We'll continue to receive these funds for the next 20 years. When I ran for selectman in 2020, I advocated for a full-time planner and a full-time veterans agent. We now have a full-time veterans agent, and soon we'll begin the search for a town planner, which was budgeted at our most recent town meeting. In 2021, I proposed to the Board of Selectmen that we appoint a selectman liaison to all the town boards and committees. The Board of Selectmen agreed, and we each took on a role. I'm the current liaison for the Open Space Committee and the Planning Board. Several years ago, when Abington reached our limit on the amount of sewer we could send to Brockton, I met with the then Mayor, Bill Carpenter, and explained the dire need for more sewer capacity. After a few meetings with him, he instructed his people to reach an agreement with the town of Abington to give us an additional 500,000 gallons of sewer per day, on top of the 1 million we were using at the time. Currently, we still have about 400,000 gallons of sewer capacity available for new construction. I hope after you hear from all the candidates tonight, you will once again elect me to serve the town of Abington. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Alex Bezanson. All right. Next up, we have Board of Selectmen candidate Suzanne Jesberg.
Hi, my name is Suzanne Jesberg. I've lived in the town for a little over 35 years. I've raised 2 kids, sent them to Abington schools, and then in high school, they went to BC High. I am, if you don't know me, I was the director of the Abington Senior Center for the last 13 years. I just recently retired in November. And I have been an advocate for not only the seniors in this town, for the students in this town, and for all the sports in this town. I feel that I have worked really hard, and this is a new venture for me. That's why I'm running for selectman. I served in Abington as a Council on Aging Director, and 2 months after I was hired, we were zero budgeted, unfortunately. And from there, on my track record, we have worked hard. We have opened up the senior center. We've involved the community. Abington is a great town. They have a great community, and with that, we went through a COVID situation, which is, as you all know, was very difficult. And we were able to work departmentally, and all the departments, all the department heads, to do COVID clinics, to supply seniors with extra housing, extra materials, extra food, anything they wanted, and social and emotional support that people needed. And I think that is really important for an advocate. I think Abington does need an advocate on this board and able to work with all the departments, which I have done. I want to honestly say that we have built in the community, not only for the seniors, which obviously that is in my heart, the seniors. We have built more programs for emotional support for our community. We've expanded our fuel assistance. We have had grants for the community development grants that we supplied, and I think we've done a good job. I think I've done a good job to supporting Abington and advocating for them.
Right. Thank you, Suzanne Jesberg. All right. Up next, Board of Selectmen candidate Kevin Donovan.
Thank you very much, Alex, and thank you to the Republican Town Committee. My name's Kevin Donovan. I'm a lifelong resident of Abington. My wife and I live on Adams Street, and people have asked, why are you running? Well, to be perfectly honest with you, I'm retired and I'm bored. I don't have my llamas or my goats or my chickens anymore, so I don't have any farm chores to do, but I have a boatload of experience. I've been a selectman, town moderator, park and rec commissioner, sewer commissioner in Abington. I was the town administrator in Rockland, the town administrator in Kingston, executive director of the Holbrook Housing Authority, executive director of the Stoughton Housing Authority. I was Plymouth County Commissioner, Special Assistant to the Governor, Administrative Aide to a State Senator, and I retired as Chief Executive Officer of South Shore Tri-Town Development, which is Union Point. So I have that ability both at the state, county, and local level to offer my experience to the town back again, and I hope to be able to, as we go through the process this evening, to answer any of the questions that are hanging out there. But most importantly, I want to impress upon everybody, you have 2 votes. And obviously, I'm soliciting one of those 2 votes. But I want you to remember one thing, that experience really does matter. And I would ask that you consider that when you cast your vote on April 29th. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kevin Donovan. All right. Alex Bezanson, you're on the hot seat. First question. All right, let's see here. As a selectman, would you be in favor of a Proposition 2.5 override for operational budget purposes? Please explain why or as to why not.
No, I would not. I would never support that, especially at this point. I don't see the need to do it. The town is in good financial shape now, and we have some revenue streams coming in the future. One is the cannabis that was mentioned earlier tonight. We only have one location open. We received approximately $300,000 from them last year and about $300,000 from the state last year. Although the state money is going to disappear, if one of these cannabis shops is doing $10 million a year, we're going to receive $300,000. We've permitted 5 cannabis locations. All of them will not be doing that amount, but it is a considerable amount of money. I see an opportunity to develop Route 18, and with our town planner, hopefully that will happen. And I just don't see the need for a Prop 2.5 override, and I wouldn't be in favor of it under these conditions.
All right, thank you, Alex. Suzanne, same question to you.
I am not in favor of a Proposition 2.5 override. I think the town is doing a great job with their budget. We have to really look. I think in the future, I still would not be for an override. I think that we are getting money in from our marijuana shops. We're getting money, grants from the state. And at this point, I think we're in a good position. I would not vote for that.
All right, thank you, Suzanne. Kevin, same question to you.
No, obviously, an operational override is forever. And I think you just have to look at the tax bills that just came out. I'll use myself as an example. People that are on fixed incomes, which I am now being retired, you know, the value of our home went up substantially as well as our tax bill. So I think we have to keep into consideration that type of an impact it has on the residents and especially those on fixed incomes. The things that I think we have to do is look at what are available revenues that may come in that may be reoccurring. I could point to the Union Point as one example, and has been mentioned previously here, the cannabis issue that provides some revenue coming in. So I think as far as an operational override, no. Debt exclusion is a different question, and I'm sure we'll get into that.
All right, thank you, Kevin. All right, Suzanne, we'll start with, this question will start off with you. If anyone knows me at all, I'm always big about priorities. I love priorities. The question, if elected to the Board of Selectmen, what will be your top priorities to focus on over your 3-year term?
I think my top priorities would be senior housing, affordable housing. Affordable housing and senior housing have been a sentence of words that have been into our community lately. Senior housing is run by the state, and my personal goal would try to be expand our senior housing, whether it's on Shaw Ave or Lincoln Boulevard or Union Point. That would be a great area to expand senior housing and affordable housing. I think that would be one of my priorities. I would work really hard with our state rep, with our selectmen board, to try to find funds to expand our senior housing. I also think that my other priority is planning. I think the town, we need to have a very solid plan for the future. We have a great little town, but we don't want to lose our uniqueness, our character, our open spaces. We really do want to have to come together and find a really good plan that for our future, for our kids. We have Griffin's Dairy, for example, a great space. We have a community garden there. We have a walking path there. But there is room for other things for our kids, more fields for them. If you keep our kids off, keep them active, they won't get into shenanigans. And I felt that way with my own children. And then the third would probably be looking at at the departments and finding out their needs and their wants and what can, as selectmen, we can help them with. I think there's kind of like a little bit of a break between department heads and Board of Selectmen, and I think we need to be more involved and be those liaisons. So.
All right, thank you, Suzanne. Kevin, same question to you.
Basically, the top 3 priorities I would have would be, number one, take a look at the town's debt schedule and look at what we have hanging out there on debt and whether it can be refinanced. And I'll use a case in point. When I was the Chief Executive Officer at Union Point, we didn't have any buildings, so I had to be novel in the approach. We actually did it first. It was the first land assessment bond in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that was issued. Land assessment bonds were issued in California and Texas. We did it in Massachusetts. When I went back on the board after I retired representing Abington, I insisted that the Board of Directors look at refinancing that bond that was issued in 2010. We took a 6-month worth of work to do it. We refinanced it. The amount of money we saved was $4.2 million. We wrote in the bond indenture that money we could accrue up front at closing, which we did. So when we closed on the bond, we had $4.2 million that was put in escrow that's held by the escrow agent that can be used for infrastructure at the base. I would like to look at that for the town's debt structure. Now, that doesn't mean all the debt that was issued is available to be refinanced, but you got to take a look at what was it issued at and what we could do for the future. Secondly, would be looking at the town buildings and working with the utility companies to try and come up with a plan, do a utility assessment, and leverage working with the utilities to finance buttoning up the infrastructure so that you're not wasting money in electricity, water, oil, and gas, and so forth and so on. And lastly, would be looking at, from a capital standpoint, the construction of a fire headquarters and DPW facility. The fire station on Route 18 was built in 1964. Rockland Street was built in 1973. The highway department was built in the 1940s. Currently, I'm on the committee as the town manager's representative. The price tag right now is, okay.
Well, Kevin, it's interesting interesting that you bring that up. So this question, we start with you.
All right.
Wait, I didn't answer that one.
Oh, yeah?
I didn't answer the,
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, geez, Louise. Sorry about that, Alex.
am I limited to 3 things?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I have about 6 or 7 top priorities, but I guess when I ran in 2020, one of the priorities was to hire a grant writer, which we haven't had the budget to do. But from the urging of the Board of Selectmen and our great department heads and the town manager, a lot of our departments are seeking out grants, and I think we've received more grants than ever that I remember in the town. So we need to continue that, and we do have a subcontractor that can help us with some of the grants. I'd like to develop a town forest. We recently purchased a piece of land that was going to be developed, and it sits right in the middle of all the land that we own between here and Rockland Street. I'd like to see that developed into a town forest. Once our open space plan is complete, there'll be grants available for that. I'd like to develop a recreation area, as the selectmen discussed, on the open land in Glenowitz Way on the right-hand side coming up. I don't think it's big enough or suitable for senior housing, so I would like to see that at rec area. We're going to have to move the basketball court when the fire station is built, and that would be a good spot for it. We've received a commitment from the Boston Bruins Foundation of $50,000 for a street hockey rink, and there's a possibility that we could put some more pickleball courts there. I'd like to continue working. We're working to cap the landfill. We've had a couple of developers reach out to us that we can get the landfill on Groveland Street capped at no cost to us, and they'll actually pay us money. You think that sounds strange, but that's how they're doing it. These big developers need places to get rid of the fill when they're doing all these major projects in Boston and all around the state. We got an initial okay from DEP to do that, and we're waiting for the final. So we'd like to get that RFP out as soon as we can. If we don't cap it now, there will be a day when DEP will force us to cap it, and it may cost us several $1 million. So those are some of my goals.
All right, thank you, Alex. All right, Kevin, we'll start this question off with you. Are you in favor of building a new fire station / DPW building?
Yes, and let me tell you why. As I mentioned, I'm on the committee. I came to the committee late as the town manager's representative, and the current cost of both facilities is $58.3 million. Now, that proposal is going to be going to a fall town meeting in October. It would require a two-thirds vote at town meeting, and then within 45 days, a debt exclusion election would have to make a determination before it could be fully implemented. On $58.3 million, the principal and interest at 5% is roughly $3.8 million a year. However, what I'm looking at, or what I have looked at, is that the Plymouth County retirement system is going to be fully funded in 2029, which means Abington's assessment drops down from round numbers, Abington would save about $2.4 million when the system is fully funded per year. Secondly, by the time, if the fire station highway is approved, $550,000 is coming off the books. The police station debt, the school roofs, school windows, and school security is coming off. So round numbers is about $3 million that is coming off the books. If the fire station and highway is approved, it's $3.8 million. So you've got an argument to be made. Now, granted, it is a very large ticket item, and the debate should be had, as well as it should, at the October town meeting, and the people, rightfully will vote as their means allow them to do so. However, it's not a question of coming to the town and saying, look, here we are, we need this money. We haven't got an alternative. And I guess you want to think of it like your own roof. If you need to put a roof on your house, do you want to put the roof on? No. Do you want to pay for it? Of course not. But it has to be done. And I think we're faced with the fact that we have to do it.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Alex, same question.
And the question is?
Yes, are you in favor of building a new fire station / DPW building? And I'll add to it, why yes or why not?
Yes, I am definitely in favor. I'm not in favor of spending any more money. I actually appealed my assessment this year. I didn't win, but I did appeal it. So I think my taxes are too high, just like everyone else. But I think we learned something when we built the school. We talked about building the school for about 10 years before we did it. And every year the price goes up. And eventually we all knew we were going to have to build a school. The situation is the same here. We have to build a fire station and we have to build a DPW facility. I'm not happy with $58 million, but if we wait 5 years, some parts of the DPW building could be condemned. The fire station, especially the one on Route 18, is not going to be habitable. So if we wait, it could be 68 million, 78 million. It's going to happen. We're going to build a fire station and a DPW facility at some point. I think we're going to have to do it this year.
All right, thank you, Alex. Suzanne, same question to you.
I do agree. I am in full support of a fire station. I live right in that area. Actually, I live across the street from the police station. And my neighbors had concerns because, well, we all have concerns. Number one, the bill. It's a pretty big bill, but I do agree. Every single year, as you can see with your taxes, your electricity, your utilities, it goes up. And we definitely need a fire station. I'm in full support. My neighbors were questioning because of the noise, because of the traffic. I mean, we do have young kids in our little neighborhood. But you look at the other two fire stations, they're old and they're not up to date. And we definitely need, I truly believe we need our fire department, DPW, and police station in one little group, in one little area. So I'm very pro for that. But I do agree that we should be looking for revenue to offset that bill.
All right, thank you, Suzanne. Next question, we start with you, Alex. As the appointing authority for specific Abington boards, committees, and commissions, such as the Zoning Board of Appeals, Open Space Committee, Conservation Commission, etc., what qualifications do you look for in an applicant?
Well, unfortunately, we still have vacancies. So I think qualifications, I think any resident that wants to volunteer should volunteer. Many years ago, when I got on conservation, I wanted to do something with the town, and I had no conservation experience. I went to the MAC classes, I paid attention at the meetings. I had Frank Makowitz as my mentor, and there was nothing better than that. But I think there are certain boards that, and committees that anyone that wants to volunteer, we should consider them. Obviously, it's great to have someone that might be a surveyor or a botanist on conservation, but that's probably not feasible. And zoning board, we've got a good board right now. I think they've got many years of experience. We've got a couple of new members there that are doing well, but and they had no experience on there, and I think the board's functioning well now. So I think in a perfect world, yes, we'd have experienced attorneys and everything on all our boards or whatever we needed, but that's not happening. So I encourage anyone to volunteer for a board.
All right, thank you, Alex. Suzanne, same question to you.
So I'm a perfect example of not having the experience to be on the selectman board, but if I had to choose, I would want somebody who would be an advocate, who would be interested in being on the planning board or the water department, who'd be interested in the town. And I think that volunteer, that's when you put, you put your name out there, you put your reputation on the line, and you say, I want to help, I want to volunteer, and I want to learn. There's a lot to say that, we're out in the audience and we go to a town meeting and we vote, and we don't really understand the ins and outs. We don't get a lot of information. We try to be transparent. We try to get all this information out as far as grants and decisions and planning. And I think that you have to, be able to come up and volunteer for something that you might be interested in and a little scared about. That's how I feel.
All right, thank you, Suzanne. Kevin, same question to you.
The only qualifications I would purport would be if you're registered to vote and you have common sense. If you're willing to serve, then by all means. Look, people, have the ability to come in, they can learn. If they've got an interest in a board, then certainly that gives them, and it's their right. I mean, they're residents of the community. If they want to come up and volunteer their time, then absolutely, as long as, I don't think we should overthink it, to be honest with you.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. All right, next question, we will start with you, Suzanne. All right, let's the preservation of conservation land, open space in Abington's greenery and wildlife has become a worthy mission for Abington's residents. As a selectman, how would you work to preserve Abington's conservation and advocate for open space?
I am definitely a proponent of not tearing down trees. We have a beautiful area for our future, for our children. We have Island Grove that has our, we have Beaverbrook Camp, which is great. We do a lot of community, and I think that I see some of the other communities, and they're over building, and they're losing that kind of uniqueness. I would look at CPA money to preserve some of our open spaces. And I think that, we look at some of the areas that haven't been built on. There's some property that there was a house, we've torn that down because it was unlivable, and it's still sitting there. Those are things that I think the town should preserve. We have a beautiful Griffin's Dairy that there was talk about, maybe building on that years and years ago. I think that we should preserve our land. You can't get it back once you build on it. That's the thing. You're never going to get that land back. And with the environment and how we're moving forward, I think just having our little, uniqueness to stay.
All right, thank you, Suzanne. Kevin, same question to you.
Yes, actually, I was on the Board of Selectmen when we purchased Griffin's Dairy, and I was one of the main proponents of doing that because, as they say, you can't make more land. So from that standpoint, one of the things at Union Point I was insistent upon when I met with the new master developer, because they asked each of us, what did we think we wanted to see over there? One of the things I wanted to make sure is that we had enough of the open space conservation land protected around the perimeters of the base. And they have done that in their plan that they're putting forward. There's sort of a green buffer around the edges, and they're going to, you'll see it when they propose it. They'll be coming to town meeting in the fall as well. So that's, and again, using the, as has been mentioned, is the community preservation money, to pick up any land that is available, but primarily that would be the focus.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Alex, same question to you.
Thank you. That has been a priority of this current Board of Selectmen and the town manager. A resident reached out to me about a year ago, and he had land that abuts Beaver Brook, and I convinced him to donate it to the town, and the Board of Selectmen accepted it as conservation land. Another resident reached out to us to purchase the 9 acres that I spoke about earlier. With CPA funds, we purchased that. We reactivated the Open Space Committee within the last couple of years because it wasn't in existence anymore. And they've been working extremely hard, and I am, like I said, I am the liaison on that. So I think we need to continue that, and that is a mission of this board and the current town manager and the Board of the Open Space Committee. I recently spoke to a woman that owns property on Chestnut Street, and I'm trying to convince her to make a donation to the town. So we are working on that, and there's several parcels around. There's some land off of Brockton Ave that somebody has approached us on, and we're trying to get that also. So I think it's a big part of this current Board of Selectmen and the town manager's mission is to get as much as we can. But not all land is suitable for conservation land. We still need to do some development, but we need to pick and choose the right locations to do that.
All right, thank you, Alex. All right, next question, we'll start off with you, Kevin. PFAS levels in the Abington's Hingham Street and Myers Ave water reservoirs are continuing to be a growing health and safety concern. As a member of the Board of Selectmen, what will be your approach to address this health and safety situation?
Yeah, PFAS is coming, what the EPA designated as an emerging contaminant, and it's something that I ran into again at the base. And it's kind of resurrected itself into a full-blown issue in water supplies. Abington just doesn't have any more capacity for water. That's just plain and simple. What we've got to be able to do is look at the plants themselves to be able to address the issue of eradicating the PFAS. The problem with PFAS is it's a forever chemical. Once it's in the water, in the soil, it kind of stays there. So you've got to develop the technology to be able to deal with that. It's something that we're going to have to be faced with, and I know working with the water commissioners, it's, and I'm sure the state is recognizing too that a lot of the communities in Massachusetts are having this issue, so that we're going to have to put our heads together to be able to come up with the funding for it as well.
Right. Alex, same question to you.
Yes, that's something that a lot of residents don't understand, that we are working very hard on this. Along with Rockland, we've allocated $26 million for filters for the Hannigan Reservoir. And as I understand it, last time I spoke with the superintendent, Hannigan is the only water resource of our three that is still testing above the 20 parts per whatever it is. I don't even know, but it's just above what is allowed. And what happened is the federal regulations were at one level, and the state changed it to a lower level, which is basically an unfunded mandate, and made us clean it up. So we've spent $26 million. They're working on the filters for that. Myers Ave, as I understand it, the filter is working there, but it has to be changed quite a bit. So the hope is once the $26 million filters are in, and there's supply chain issues with that, and that's a word that we never thought we'd hear, but since COVID, it's a very common word, supply chain issues. We've also joined the lawsuits, the same with the opioids. And like I said earlier, we've received quite a bit of money with the opioid settlements, and eventually I think we will receive the monies back from the manufacturers of the PFAS chemicals in the class action suit that we've joined. But that's not helping us now. It's costing us $26 million to filter that as we speak. But hopefully that will solve the problem going forward.
Thank you, Alex. Suzanne, same question to you.
And it's probably the same answer. We're working, I know that I've talked to the water department superintendent, and we are working towards, cleaning up all the what is it? PFAS, sorry. And I know that the filters, you have to change the filters every, twice a year. They're trying, depending on how much they're getting. I'm glad to hear about the lawsuit. It's something you have to do. It's kind of like in your own house. You have to, let's be healthy and try to clean the water in Abington. And support the water department. I think they're doing a great job. I think we're looking into why do we have so much? Why are our levels so high? Where's the source of this? And I think that, eventually I know the prices are so high, but we will learn to try to figure out how we're going to pay for, all this water and all the, the chemicals in it.
All right, thank you, Suzanne. All right, Alex, next question to you. What do you believe the role of the selectmen should be in the town budget process?
Well, I think the way we've been handling it the last few years that I've been on the board is the town manager meets with the finance committee and updates us periodically with the budget. I think it's a good idea to have the department heads into our meetings to touch on their budget. We don't need to go through line by line. We have a town manager and a FinCom to do that. But I think we should be kept in the loop. And I think by having the department heads before the Board of Selectmen, that more residents are saying it. I don't know what the Nielsen ratings are, Kevin, but I think that we probably have more people watching Selectmen meetings than FinCom sometimes, maybe not all the time. But I think if the residents can see it on the FinCom and they can see it on the Selectmen's meeting, I think that's a good thing.
All right, thank you, Alex. Suzanne, same question to you.
After doing budgets with the town for the last 13 years, I think that on the opposite side, I think we should really work a little bit harder with the town manager to look at the budgets. It's great that the department heads come in, they present their budgets, but sometimes it's a little confusing. It's confusing when you are here in front of FinCom and what they're talking about, to try to present your budget and it being concise and clear for our community. I would like to see more involvement with the selectmen board as far as the budgets in a whole. I think there's questions sometimes that come up when we go to town meeting and we're going through this budget and people are going, yes, 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 and there's no questions. There should be a lot more questions when we go to town meeting as a community, as a resident of this. And I think with the selectmen board, having liaisons is a great idea, having them come in, but really having more of a hand, not holding, but really be more involved as a select person with department heads. Sometimes it gets really confusing with department heads, what they need, what they're looking for, the future. It does get a little hectic and you need somebody there to kind of say, hey, this is what we have. And this is what you're doing. And you're doing a great job, but we need to, kind of rope your priorities in.
All right, thank you, Suzanne. Same question to you, Kevin.
I think what we have to remember is the town went to a strong town manager form of government, and the selectmen are supposed to make broad policy decisions. Now, with that said, I could make an argument, you can bend that Gumby doll however you want to make it and make an argument what would be a broad policy decision. But I do think, as a general premise, the town manager formulates his budget, it goes to the finance committee for, deliberation. There is nothing wrong with then the town manager making a report to the selectmen, and if he wants to bring the department heads up, that's up to him. And so the selectmen, for more on a public airing, if you will, of to where it stands. But I do think, we have to remember that the charter requires that the selectmen not get involved in the day-to-day operations of the town. That's specifically in the charter. And I would guard against trying to delve into, that part of it. But certainly from a broad policy statement, and again, I could sit here and make an argument, like everything. You can make an argument on either side of the issue, however you want to frame it. But I think under that context, we have to keep in mind the broader picture, from that standpoint. But I see no problem with them coming in so we can get a general idea on the update and how it's proceeding forward.
All right, thank you, Kevin. All right, Suzanne, question to you. Let's see. Oh, here we go. What do you feel are your qualifications and background to make you a good candidate for Board of Selectmen?
Oh, great question. So obviously, between these two great gentlemen, I am the least experienced as being a selectman. To say that, I do believe that I have the background that I've worked hard, the reputation that I've worked hard, bringing a department from literally zero to where it is now. I run a multi-million-dollar company for myself, and I have 20 to 30 employees working for me at a time. And I feel that, if you want change, if you want a new perspective, if you want somebody to look at it a little differently, I think that you should volunteer, try to be elected, try to do the best you can, and learn. There's a lot to learn being a selectman and any board. There's a lot to learn. But we don't have, obviously with our water commissioner, we didn't have anybody to run. I think that's really important. I think that I can learn, I can advocate, and I can be a great selectman.
Right. Thank you,
If the town chooses.
Thank you, Suzanne. Kevin, same question.
And I think that's the reason there are 5 of us, because each selectman brings a different set of skill sets to the table. Evidence that I particularly have the experience in municipal, state, and county government. So I guess I would bring that. Suzanne has a different set of skill sets, and Alex the same thing. But it's what blends together that makes the town work. So if you have people, it's no different than if you look at the Supreme Court, when the governor, whoever the governor is, wants to pick the justices for the Supreme Judicial Court, they usually focus on lawyers who have experience in different facets of the law. Criminal law, defense law, corporate law, so that when they sit as a body, they bring their different perspectives to the table. It's no different than as selectmen. Each one of us has a different perspective to bring. I offered previously in my opening statement what my experience is, and I feel as though that's what I can bring to the table. And then after debate and discussion with the others, we can formulate and move forward with an informed decision.
All right. Alex, same question to you.
Yeah, I think in my opening statement, I also stated the past boards and commissions I've been on. I've served this town as a volunteer for many, many years, and I think that should speak volumes. And I'm the type of person that when someone approaches me as a conservation commissioner or a water commissioner or as a selectman with an idea, we get it done. In 2015-18, when I was on the board, someone approached us to do a dog park. So Selectman Coyle and I asked the board to appoint a dog park committee, and we now have a dog park. That wasn't my idea, but we helped follow it through. people have come to me and they saw a need for the substance abuse. So I followed up on that, and we started what's now Abington Copes. I get things done, and I think I've always been that way, and I think I have a list of accomplishments that I've done over the years for the town of Abington, whether it's conservation or the Water Commission or the Board of Selectmen.
All right, thank you, Alex. And Kevin, we will end with last question to you. Starting. Available, affordable, in senior housing is a desired need in Abington. As a selectman, how would you address the needs of affordable housing and/or senior housing? I know that as also part of the question, I know that the Affordable Housing Authority has recommended that North and Center School be used for subsidized senior housing. So that is also part of the conversation. So how would you address the needs of affordable housing and/or senior housing?
Well, first of all, I think drawing, as I had mentioned previously, I was executive director of the Holbrook and Stoughton Housing Authorities, which is state-assisted subsidized housing for the elderly and disabled. And I'm a strong believer in that. You have to remember that people that are on fixed incomes get to the point in life where they sometimes can't afford to stay in their own home. They may have the equity in the home, but they don't have the ability to maintain it. So I think it's incumbent upon society then to provide them with the necessary abilities to live life, live to the rest of their life in comfort. Recently, I think it was just the other day, the state Senate passed a bill. The governor had proposed a Secretary of Housing, a new cabinet official, and the Senate had passed that. And I'm hopeful that it'll be on the calendar of the House for the House to consider it. In doing so, I think one of the focuses has to be twofold. One, in Massachusetts, a lot of the business community has got together and said, look, the titans of industry, Massachusetts, you have to do something about housing, because if you don't, we're going to relocate our businesses because we cannot sustain our workforce. Secondary to that, I think this new secretariat has to focus in on the elderly and the disabled. And one of that would be to kickstart the old, what they call the Chapter 667 and congregate facilities, so that we could provide that type of affordable meaning subsidized housing for people that have reached their status in life where perhaps they can't afford to stay in their own home. Affordable housing is a little bit different. I think we can address that, as we mentioned, at the North and Center School, as well as the issues at Union Point as well. But I think from my standpoint, I would be more focused on the lower end of the spectrum, the people that can't afford to live in their homes.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Alex, same question to you.
Yes, senior housing, affordable housing is always a big issue. And again, this current board has been working actively on some of these issues. We have hired a consultant to write an RFP for the North and Center School. There is actually a meeting this Friday with some developers and the town manager and that consultant. So that RFP should be ready to go out within the next few weeks, I would think. So that's one option. Our preference, I think, is to keep the footprint of Center School, but North School would be different. If that were to be torn down and a development built, that would be great also. There are several issues with both of them. Last count, it was about $500,000 each to remove the asbestos alone, and that's going to limit what a developer could do with that and make money at it. There's also a piece of land on Brockton Ave that I've been talking with the town manager about that was donated to the town in 1954, I believe the deed says, for an elementary school, and town meeting approved that. We're looking into that now. Town council's looking into that to see if that deed restriction could be taken off. And if that is the case, then I believe there's 14 acres there, about 10 acres of upland. And I think the corner of High Street and Brockton Ave would be a great development for some senior housing or some affordable housing. So we are working on several of these issues, but the wheels of government do turn slowly. But we are making progress, and like I said, there is a meeting this Friday on the with the developer and the developers, potential developers, and the consultant. So hopefully we'll have an RFP soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. And Suzanne?
So I've been working for the senior center, obviously, and I've been always a advocate for senior housing. The issue with senior housing that I've personally just had, it's so far apart. All the seniors really want their own little community. We have housing development on Shaw Ave, we have Lincoln Boulevard. North School may be a great place for senior housing. I think Center School is a great place to develop for senior housing and affordable housing. It's just close. It's close to the senior center. Most seniors want to go from their house, come here, talk to the veteran agent, pay their water bill, go to the town clerk. Spread out, it's difficult for the senior center to accommodate that. We only have one bus running, and I know I'm talking about, that side of it because that's my expertise. But I definitely would promote, CLAW to find more money for more senior housing. We need it. We're all getting older. We're going to get there one of these days. So, and I know a lot of seniors, exactly, they can't afford to stay in their own homes. It is a 10-year wait, if not longer, for senior housing in this town. And I believe there's only 168 units for senior housing in those two developments that are under the state. So, yes, I would definitely be pushing, clawing, advocating to get more senior housing in the town.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Suzanne. And for closing statements, we'll start with you, Kevin, and work this way.
Okay. Well, first of all, again, thank you to everybody for being here, and April 29th is coming up 10 days away now. So I would offer again my experience. I can tell what I will do for you as to what I have done for you. I look at not only, since I've been retired, I've had the boards of selectmen of two different communities, Kingston and Hanson, asked me to come back to fill in as town administrator, Kingston on 2 occasions, Hanson on 1. So I have that ability to know the intricacies of local government. I think what we have to remind ourselves is that it's for a 3-year term. Currently, the economic forecast, if you want to look at the recent cooling of the economy, the failure of the Silicon Bank and the Signature Bank, the chairman of J.P. Morgan had indicated that there would be inflation clouds on the horizon, which means if inflation does present itself, the first thing that usually happens is the lottery aid. People stop playing the lottery, which means the lottery aid that comes to the town and the local aid is reduced. Then generally, Chapter 70 aid is reduced. So that I would offer, because I have that experience, I've been through weathering the storms in a number of different communities in terms of situations. I would offer that to you, that while things look pretty good today, it doesn't necessarily mean so in the 3 years that we'll be elected for. So with that said, I bring to the table that experience that I could offer, and I would hope and again ask for one of your 2 votes on April 29th. Or sooner, early voting is available, as well as absentee voting, so feel free to go down to the town clerk's office if you're not going to be around on the 29th, and thank you again.
All right, thank you, Kevin Donovan. Suzanne?
Thank you for having me. Obviously, I said before, I don't have as much experience as these 2 great gentlemen, but what I do have is tenacity, and I advocate, and I push, and I learn, and that is what I do. I will learn, I will be a voice, I will be available in the community. Honestly, everybody probably almost everybody in town has my cell phone number, so I'm not afraid of that. And I'm not afraid of, working really hard and learning new things and coming into a board with, a clean slate and actually looking at it in a different perspective. That's what I would bring, and I would hope that everybody would vote. That's the most important thing. I would love your vote for one of the two seats, but the important thing is to vote in this town. We don't have enough voters. We look at it and it's like, not even a tenth of the town is voting or going to town meeting. So let's go out and vote next Saturday. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you, Suzanne Jesberg. Alex?
Thank you. Once again, thank you to the Republican Town Committee, Abington CAM, and all the candidates that are on the ballot. It's not easy to be a candidate, and it's not easy on the families, but we all do it because we want to make a difference and we want to make our town better. I believe the best approach to good government is engaging all the stakeholders for the benefit of the entire community. I once heard someone say that the way you campaign is the way you will govern. My campaign is based on my accomplishments, my merits, and my willingness to work with all parties. The April 29th election, as with all elections, is extremely important. We need to elect people with a vision and people that can actually get things accomplished. I have proven that I can do that, and I ask that for one of your two votes to vote for me, Alex Bezanson, on April 29th. My cell phone number is 781-953-1236. My personal email is alexbezanson@yahoo.com. I do that in all my business cards, everything, so the residents can reach out to me. And I get quite a few residents to reach out to me. And I encourage residents to reach out with your questions, concerns, and your ideas. So please vote on April 29th. Consider me for one of your two votes. I would really appreciate it. And thank you very much, and good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Alex, Suzanne, and Kevin.
Very good. Thank you.
All right, and with that, that will conclude the Abington Republican Town Committee Candidates Forum for 2023. Just as a reminder for those who are watching at home and for everyone in the audience, elections are on April 29th at the Beaverbrook Elementary School, 1 Ralph Hamlin Jr. Lane, from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. If you do need an absentee or an early ballot, the deadline to apply for an absentee or early ballot by mail is 5 p.m. on the 5th business day prior to the election, so it would be April 24th. And as the candidates also said too, make sure you get out and vote on April 29th. Thank you, everyone.
Best thing I did, like, so the kids were younger, so it was over at high school. I never think I could go.
One down, one to go.